Good evening. Welcome to the City of Wheat Ridge Planning Commission for October 16th, 2014. May I have a roll call of the members?
Ann Brinkman.
Here.
Ellen Bucknam, absent. Steve Timms.
Here.
Scott Ohm.
Here.
Emery Dorsey. Here. Amanda Weaver, absent. Donna Kimsey. And Silka Pop, absent.
Thank you. May we have the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. May I have approval of the order of tonight's agenda?
Madam Chair, I move to approve the order of tonight's agenda.
Second.
Please vote.
Motion approved, 5-0.
Thank you. May I have approval of the minutes of September 4th, 2014?
Madam Chair, I move to approve the minutes from September 4th, 2014.
Second.
Please vote.
Motion approved, 5-0.
Thank you. Now is a time for the public forum. This is a time for any person to speak on any subject not appearing on the agenda. Is anybody out there not speaking on tonight's agenda? Okay. So we will close the public forum and we will open the public hearing. First, I want to apologize for being late. I'm on vacation tomorrow, and so I was tricking through my vacation tasks and completely forgot. I apologize. I really do. Okay, first case is case number WZ-14-05, a request for approval of a zone change from residential 3, R3, to planned residential development, PRD, to convert ownership structure from condominiums to townhomes for properties located at 6904 through 6940 West 48th Avenue.
And I'll be presenting both cases together.
Let me read the other one. And case number WS-14-01, a request for approval of a 19-lot subdivision for the purpose of converting existing condominiums to townhomes for properties located at 6904 to 6940 West 48th Avenue.
Thank you. Good evening. For the record, Lauren Michalak. I'm a planner with the City of Wheat Ridge Community Development Department, and tonight I'll be presenting these two related cases. I would like to enter into the public record the contents of the case file, the zoning ordinance, the comprehensive plan, and this digital presentation.
Accepted.
Thank you. The property is within the City of Wheat Ridge. All appropriate notification and posting requirements have been met, and the Planning Commission does have jurisdiction to hear this case. So we will start with quick orientation to the site. This is a 2012 aerial. North is to the top of the screen. The property is outlined here in that bright blue, and it's located in the northeast quadrant of the city on West 48th Avenue between Pierce and Reed Streets. The property is just under an acre in size. It's about 40,000 square feet, and the width of the frontage on 48th Avenue to the north here is about 130 feet. There is a small portion of right-of-way adjacency down here at the southwest corner, at the exterior corner of 47th Place and Quay Street. The improvements on the site, as you can see, the site is developed, and I want to preface the presentation by saying that there's no proposed change to the physical improvements on the property. So there's a detached single-family home here on the north side of the property, and then this L-shaped building includes 18 attached units that are currently owned as condominiums. There's some open air parking here in the middle of the site, and then this white roof and the darker colored roof are carports on that east property line. The property is zoned residential 3. That's our multifamily zone district. Allows for single, 2, and multifamily dwellings. You can see that the property is pretty well surrounded by a different residential zone district, R2. That's a single and 2 family zone district, and the majority of the surrounding properties are single and 2 family homes. The nearest other multifamily development is just off the screen, a couple lots to the south here on Quay Street. Do have a few photos of the site just to orient you. Again, this is on 48th Avenue looking into the main entrance to the property. That is a single family home, or the detached dwelling on the right-hand side. It's got its own driveway. You can sort of see just to the right of the screen. That house was built in 1957. And then if you're looking into the site at the attached units, as I mentioned, there's 18 units. The carports are on your left-hand side. There's sort of common amenities, the mail and the trash storage area on this northern side of the site. A better unit or a better view of the condo units. These were built in 1983. They're two-story, as you can see, a little bit of an offset on that second story, a mix of siding, masonry, stucco, and some modest sort of front yard landscaping. They tend to be paired units, so you can see the two front doors and they share a front stair. And that sidewalk runs along the front of all of those units. And then one last picture. This is actually from that southwest corner at 47th Place and Quay. So this is their small area where they do touch the right-of-way down here. It is relevant because there's a tiny sliver of right-of-way dedication as a part of this application. But for the most part, the backyards of the attached units are fenced in, and then this is just landscaped with a little bit of a drainage improvement here. So the request tonight, there are 19 dwelling units on the property, and they are individually owned by 9 different parties. All the units are owned as condominiums, and including that detached home, and the common areas are owned, and all the land owned by the condo association. So the cases being heard tonight are because the owners would like to convert the units from condominiums to townhomes. And one of the biggest differences in condo versus townhome ownership is with a condo, you own that airspace that you're living in, but you don't own the land. And with a townhome, you own the land under your dwelling unit, and conceivably a portion of the land adjacent to your dwelling unit. To own a townhome requires that there be lot lines delineating where that land is that you're owning. This is a little bit of a unique application because there's no physical change taking place on the property. There's no development being proposed, but there are 2 applications that need to be reviewed in order to allow the conversion from condo to townhome to be able to create those lot lines. So the first application is a subdivision plat, and you've reviewed a 19-lot subdivision that has the 19 lots for individual townhome ownership and then tracts that are created for common space, and we'll look at that again in a minute. The second application that's being requested is a zone change, and the reason for that is that we can't approve a 19-lot subdivision in the existing R3 zoning. As I mentioned, the property is currently zoned residential 3, and under today's standards, the maximum density in R3 is 12 units per acre. And so given that there's 19 units on a site that's less than an acre, it is considered legal nonconforming. At the time it was built in the 80s, we had a different density standard for R3. It was significantly higher. So because the conversion to plat 19 lots isn't feasible in R3, the request is to rezone to a planned residential development. It's a zone district that creates specific documents that are specific to one site. And in PRD, the maximum density allowed is 21 units per acre. Unfortunately, based on the site size, that would allow exactly 19 units on this site. So as the commission is aware, a planned development requires 2 documents, the outline development plan and the specific development plan, and we will go ahead and look at some of those documents now. I know this is at a scale where they're not legible, but I'm going to walk you through each sheet of what's included. This is the cover page of the outline development plan, and it's essentially including a legal description, some standard declarations, and because there are 9 owners, there are 9 signature blocks for each owner and the standard signature blocks for the city. This is the second sheet of the outline development plan. The ODP establishes the zone district, and it also establishes the underlying development standards specific to this property. The graphic in this case is more of a bubble diagram. The important component on this sheet are those development standards. So we have tables that identify the maximum and minimum standards, setbacks, heights, building coverage, as well as the permitted uses. And in this case, because it is sort of an unusual situation with the detached home and the carports on one side and the attached units, we've identified different use areas. So for example, lot 1 would be where the detached home is, and so permitted primary use is only single family dwelling, so you couldn't redevelop it as a duplex, for example. And accessory uses that are appropriate in this particular case would be a home-based business, household pets, and then because they do have a little bit of a larger yard for that lot, urban gardens and accessory buildings such as a shed. That's a little bit different for the attached units where a shed would not be permitted or a public urban garden. And then we have identified a permitted use where the carport is to allow, conceivably for them to redevelop that carport if they ever needed to. Accessory structures would be allowed on that side. The specific development plan accompanies the ODP, and it is the specific site plan. Again, a unique situation. In this case, we're just documenting those existing conditions, so we have a baseline in case there's changes in the future. The important component on the SDP is that graphical portion. So we're documenting not the minimum or maximum setbacks, but the exact setbacks that exist today. The areas that are landscaped, asphalt, the concrete patios, the sidewalks. Essentially, in this case, it's a survey. You typically see these before development comes through. But as I mentioned, we're creating these two documents to legitimize the existing conditions and to establish this PRD zoning. The other document that we are reviewing tonight is a subdivision plat to create those lot lines for townhome ownership. Again, the first few pages of this are sort of standard declarations. The sheet one looks very similar to the other in that it's legal descriptions and signature blocks for owners. In this case, we do often require that lenders sign a subdivision plat, so the second page includes lenders. I made a note in the staff report that we realized for logistical purposes, routing one document to many different banks, potentially out of state, isn't ideal. So we will likely be removing these signature blocks from the plat document and getting those signatures by separate document. Sheet 3 of the plat includes some of our standard notes. As I mentioned, we've created several tracts for those common ownership areas. There is a purpose for each tract that is identified on this sheet, and we have tables with the lot sizes and the addresses, so everybody will know exactly how large their lot is that they would be owning. And the more helpful sheet to look at is the graphical portion of the plat, which is simply creating those lot lines. For the most part, they are pretty regular rectangular lots for the attached units to lots 2 through 19. Lot 1 has a slightly irregular lot line. If it was an undeveloped parcel, we'd probably have a more standardized shape, but this lot line does follow the edge of the existing landscaping and sidewalk, so there won't be maintenance issues in terms of who's maintaining a common sidewalk. The carport is a separate tract. There are a few areas for landscaping and drainage that are established as separate tract, and that hashed area, you can kind of see the hashed area in the middle there is where the shared access would be, so that everyone has permission to sort of enter and exit the property in that driveway area. In terms of the review process, we did have a neighborhood meeting in February of 2013. There's a lot of players involved with a property that already has 9 owners, so it's taken a little bit longer to get to this point. We had a few folks in attendance, and the primary questions at that time were really just understanding why we're going through land use application without changing anything physically on the property. With all land use applications, this one was sent on referral to outside agencies and other departments. And fortunately, in this case, each unit is already metered separately, so there's no conflict from a utility standpoint. Additionally, from a building standpoint, the structure was originally built more in line with the townhome building code, so there's no requirements in terms of fire rating, those shared walls, or anything that would need to happen to meet the building codes to be a townhome. And Public Works has reviewed and approved the subdivision plat. So staff is recommending approval of the zoning and the subdivision. There'll be 2 separate motions that are required. We have concluded that the request to go to a planned residential development meets the zone change criteria. It's a unique application, but we do think it's an appropriate zone change to legitimize the existing development, and also because townhomes wouldn't be feasible in any other zone district. In addition, we think that this would is supported by some of our adopted plans. The comprehensive plan, for example, really calls for stable neighborhoods and home ownership, and the applicant has conveyed that they believe converting from a condo to a townhome, because financing can be a little bit easier, could result in increased homeownership and owner-occupied units. The ODP and the specific development plan meet the requirements of the zoning code, so we're recommending approval with just the condition that a few typos that we caught be corrected. And the subdivision plat, we have concluded that it meets all of the requirements of the subdivision regulations, and all agencies have said they can continue to serve the property. So we are recommending approval again with that condition that if the lender signatures be obtained by a separate document, they be removed from the plat. So that concludes my presentation. I think I mentioned this will need 2 separate motions, so once we have a discussion and get to that point, the zoning will have to come first to allow the density that the plat would create. So zoning first, plat second. The applicant's present in the audience, but I'm also happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you. Commissioner Dorsey, any questions?
Well, in the final plat here, pardon me, the final plat, I see that, each carport is, corresponds to one of the townhomes, and then you have 2 guest units. You have a drive, which I would call a common area. Is there going to be a townhome association with this, so that, and will the association then own the common drive
That's correct.
and the 3 guest parking spaces?
That's correct. And the bylaws for it's been a condo association, it will become a different form of homeowners association, so the applicant may be able to speak to the details of that, but they have been working with an attorney to modify those covenants essentially. And we numbered each unit so that they'll have a better time sort of cross-referencing which townhome is associated or has the right to use which carport space. But they're not separate lots.
Right. My point being, though, the association then will own the townhome units will each own a carport. But then you have all this common area that will be owned by the association. Is that the way I
Yeah, and
understand
that's
it?
probably a better question for the applicant, just in terms of how that will work specifically. So I'll defer to them, if that's okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Commissioner Kimsey.
I don't have any questions.
Thank you. Commissioner Timms?
Thank you for that presentation. You say in the staff report, property is currently owned by 9 property owners. Is it your understanding that all 9 are in support of this application?
Yes.
Okay.
They each submitted for an application like this, each property owner has to acknowledge that the application has been submitted. So they have each authorized the president of the condo association to represent them in this
Okay.
application. Yeah.
And then a question on the outline development plan, on sheet 2, the setbacks. So some of the townhomes face east-west, some face north-south, lots 2 through 19. But then we have the front north setback of 5 feet. I'm just wondering,
That's one of the typos. It should just
Okay.
say front.
okay,
So we know intuitively what the front is
'Cause-
because of that different orientation.
okay.
Yep.
That's my question, thank you. And then, what is your understanding of the reason why they want to convert these from condos to townhomes?
That's a great question. I'd like to defer that to the applicant, but I can tell you that right now, so there's 9 owners, and several of those units are owned, for example, by Wheat Ridge 2020 and other folks who would like to be able to sell their units. And my understanding is that they're having trouble getting financing because they're a condo. When you have ownership of the land, it can also increase the property value. So that's how it's been conveyed to us.
And are you aware, you may not be aware, are you aware of the percentage of owner-occupied versus rental of these?
I don't know that.
Okay, I'll ask the applicant. Thank you, that's all my questions.
Thank you. Commissioner Ohm? I just have a couple of questions. So on the specific development plan, I am trying to see where the stairs are for lot 15. And I think it's just a matter of the way it was designed.
I believe those, so the lot 15 is one of the corner units down
Yep,
here. And
yep.
I believe that this stairwell serves these 3 units, and you can, applicant,
that's what I thought.
correct me if I'm wrong. And so the reason that this dark line jogs here is because that's shared by 3 units. It is part of track day, which is common space.
Okay, fair enough. And then could you explain to me, since, for example, lot 2 and 3 and 4 and 5, they each share the staircase. If one half of the staircase starts to crumble because of poor workmanship or near the weather or whatever, they have to get agreement with the other owner in order to replace the stairs?
That's the kind of thing that would need to be identified in the covenants for the homeowners association, presumably.
Okay.
So nobody in this property has any misconception of what is whose responsibility.
I get it. Okay.
But
And
it's
then,
not something the city would dictate how they need to handle that.
okay. And then the last thing, when I was at the property and I came at it from 47th Place and Quay, I'd be hard pressed to call that a drainage easement behind lots 14 through 19. I mean, it didn't look like it could hold anything or,
I don't think it's intended to hold anything as much as just convey it along that concrete, shoot, I'm not an engineer, so I'm gonna call it the wrong thing, but that little concrete swale in there just
okay,
conveys it to the storm sewer inlet that's right in the street. Let me go back to that picture.
okay.
So
The-
it's not intended as a
track B?
pond or detention, yeah. So this is that track down here. It's
Yeah.
essentially the area that's on the property but excluded from the backyard fencing.
Yep.
And so it allows this little improvement feeds into the inlet in the city right away.
Okay.
And so we do have a report in terms of how that would work. And having the easement there would allow the city to go in if there's ever deferred maintenance to ensure that that continues functioning.
Got it. And then I'm assuming, to follow on Commissioner Dorsey's question, so Tract B would also be part of the HOA? Owned
All
by-
tracks are going to be
All tracks.
commonly owned as part of the HOA.
Okay, one last question.
Sure.
Is there a change in property tax moving from condominium to townhome?
That is probably a question for the county assessor. I
Ah.
don't know.
Okay.
Yeah. Or
So
for the applicant.
potentially, since now the lot includes the land versus just the airspace,
It would make sense.
it would make sense that the property values go up and therefore property taxes might go up. Okay.
Probably.
Okay, I'm good. Thank you. Thanks very much for the presentation.
Sure.
So, does anybody want to speak? The applicant? Yeah. Come on up, please. So when you come up, if you could give your first and last name, spell your last name, and give an address, please. And you're probably going to have to lift the microphone.
It's Charles Ochsner, Ochsner, 11748 West 54th Place, Arvada, Colorado.
Thank you.
Number one, I want to thank Lauren for all of her help on this. We have been talking about this for several years, actually, and finally got around to where we're before you here tonight. We are my wife and I, Trish, are one of the owners, one of the 9 owners. We own 12 of those units today and then have some friends of ours are partners in the actual home. A little history there that might help you. We did not intend to buy these on a long-term investment. And a number of years ago, like 18 years ago, one of them came available. I've been in the real estate business by the gray hair over 50 years in the Metro Denver area. I've done a lot of different items, including some land development and other things. So one of our real estate agents, I also own Remax Alliance with my son who operates that today. But the bottom line is one of our agents came to us and said, here, there's one of these units over there that have been on the market, they can't sell it. And the real problem is the fact that they have electric heat. So we went in there and looked and ended up buying one. And then we ended up buying another one. And there were a number of those people who were trying to sell their unit back then and couldn't sell it because of the electric heat and the high bills. And we ended up, over the course of time, buying actually 14 units. And the intent was to convert the heating system, which we did, and go ahead and sell them. But during this period of time, we were renting them out, and my wife is a good property management, God bless her, and we found that basically if we wanted to sell them, even back then, the financing was a challenge. And I heard somebody talking about the condo issues that are going on here in Colorado and on new condos, et cetera. But financing for condos is virtually non-existent. If you go to get a townhome, if you have a townhome, you have a lot and you have a block, and it's no different than a single-family detached. You can get an FHA loan on it or a VA loan, and it's approved. So the fact that the ability to be able to convey these to owner-occupant units, I think, is our desire and always has been. And we, in fact, were approached by WR 2020 a few years back, and we ended up conveying, and we had a contract on more than just what they ended up buying, but they ended up buying 4, I believe, and selling 1. I think WR 20 owns 3 yet. So they own the most other than ourselves, and unfortunately, they didn't buy them to rent them either, and they had the same issue because of the conveyance on the condos. There was just no financing. So, your question regarding taxes, as you know, the property tax is based on assessed valuation, and I would hope that the assessed valuation on a townhome, because of the ability to get it financed, would increase. It's not personally for our situation that we are doing this, to make a lot more money to convert them into townhomes, that they're going to be that much more valuable than they were before, because we have them for an income stream and are renting them out, and that's fine. I think just about every one of the other owners in there, some of them owned and then left, and they're renting them out, and they're all desirous practically of conveying these into a ownership situation. This was, of course, Wheat Ridge's goal initially when WR 2020 approached us and said, we'd rather have condominiums or townhomes, owner-occupied units than rental units in this area. It's very confusing to me why the initial developer, who called them townhomes, when we bought it, it was Somerset Townhomes is the name of it, and they were built as townhomes, but yet they were recorded as a condominium situation. And the only thing that we can figure out back then was they were trying to get the house included in that area. And of course, the house became a condominium also, which is very, very strange that you have just the airspace space only in this regular, what is really a single family detached home. So, the goal obviously is to make them more financeable and have the ability, and we've already told Wheat Ridge 2020, WR 2020, they can sell theirs one at a time. We'll wait, we'll let some of the other owners sell some of theirs, and then as some of them are sold, we would put one of them at a time on them, up on the market, and gradually, if we put them all on the market, that's not healthy from a marketing standpoint, so we would phase them in over a period of time and be patient and dispose of them to owners. As far as the overall ownership of the common area, it's exactly the way it was before with the condos. The driveway, of course, before, there was no ownership of the carport units. So we felt that would be better to tie specific units to specific carports, which was not the case in the past, and it's always been a problem, which unit is mine, et cetera, especially when we've got tenants. So we feel that this is something that will accomplish really the goals of both the ownership of the units that are there, as well as the city from the standpoint of more owner-occupied units in this area, and I think it's truly a win-win. There again, on the water, the sewer, everybody has been very cooperative, and there hasn't been any additional requirements. And as was stated before, when we first talked about it, we were a little concerned that we were going to have to go into the interior and do some changing on the doubling of the walls up into the attic, and then we found out they were built as townhomes. So anyway, are there any other questions of myself?
Commissioner Dorsey.
No, I have no questions.
Thank you. Commissioner Timsey.
No, no questions.
Thank you. Commissioner Timms.
No questions, just a thank you for that background and that history. I do appreciate that.
It is a little complicated and goes back, and like I said, we own those units today. It was never our goal to own them this long, and we would be happy to, I think as well as all of the other owners in there, be able to have the ability to get them financed so that they could be sold.
Commissioner Ohm. Thank you. Thank you. So is there anybody in the audience? Do we have a sign-up list? Nope. Okay, there's nobody signed up, but that doesn't mean that you can't have a chance to speak. Is there anybody that wishes to speak on this case? Come on up, please. First name, last name, spell your last name, please, Britta.
Hi, my name is Britta Fisher, Fisher, and I'm the Executive Director of Wheat Ridge 2020. I think Mr. Ochsner covered the issues quite well, but I just wanted to state again that the whole reason that Wheat Ridge 2020 got involved in this project was actually to do significant exterior and interior upgrades to these units, which were done some years back, and then the financial situation in the housing market changed quite a bit right when we got done with that rehab. And so we are excited by the opportunity to do what we intended to do, which was to fix up units and to see them restored to home ownership. And so we feel this is a great next step to help us accomplish those goals. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Thank you very much. Is there anybody else that wishes to speak? Please.
I'll jump to just to confirm what everybody else has already said on my behalf. Jennifer Jacobson, 6906 West 48th Avenue. Spelling on the last name, sorry, Jacobson. Please. 6906 West 48th Avenue. I would request that this be passed for any number of reasons, not the least of which is when I bought this home 12 years ago, it was my affordable entry in to Wheat Ridge. I have no intention of leaving. It's my home. My daughter is here. This needs to become a financeable opportunity for other families to come in. The other townhomes and condominiums that are being built are not affordable housing for your average starting family. And I believe this is something that Wheat Ridge genuinely needs. And those of us who are ready to move on would greatly appreciate the opportunity to be able to sell so that we can move on to bigger yards in Wheat Ridge, closer to the high schools that our children have aged into. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks for coming. Is there anybody else? Okay. With that, I will close the public hearing. Oh, unless, I'm sorry, is there any final questions of staff? Apologies about that. Okay, hearing's closed. I'm interested in a motion, and then we can discuss.
Sure, I'll entertain a motion, Madam Chair, on the zone change. I move to recommend approval of case number WZ-14-05, a request for approval of a zone change from residential 3 to planned residential development and accompanying outline and specific development plans for property located at 6904 through 6940 West 48th Avenue for the following reasons. Number one, the proposal is consistent with the City of Wheat Ridge Comprehensive Plan. Number two, the proposal meets the zone change criteria. Number three, all requirements of an outline development plan have been met. Number four, all requirements of a specific development plan have been met with the following conditions. Number one, typo corrections shall be made prior to recordation.
Second.
Please vote.
Motion approved, 5-0.
Thank you. I will entertain another motion.
I'd like to make a motion for the subdivision plat. I move to recommend approval of case number WS-14-01, a request for approval of a 19-lot major subdivision for property located at 6904 through 6940 West 48th Avenue for the following reasons. Number one, all utility agencies can provide services to the property. Number two, all requirements of Article 4 of the Zoning and Development Code have been met with the following conditions. One, if lender signatures are obtained by separate documents, they shall be removed from the plat prior to recordation.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Any comments? Please vote.
Motion approved, 5-0.
So what's the next step for this?
This application will be heard by City Council on December 8th. For anybody that may have received a mailing and is here or watching, we originally had scheduled it in November, so we will be sending an updated mailing. It's definitely on December 8th.
8th. Okay. Great. Thank you, and thank you for coming in. And I apologize again. It's not an excuse. It's just again, sorry. Okay. Do we have any other items?
I don't have any other items. We do anticipate that we'll have meetings for both of the dates in November, so likely November 6th and the 20th.
Okay. Is there anything that staff is looking at as far as code changes? Any?
Now that we have a full staff, that will be something that we usually strategize and present in January, sort of what our code amendment goals are for the year. The last couple of years, we haven't had the luxury of a full staff, so internally we've started to look at that list and prioritize things.
Great.
So the top of the list right now is likely lighting cell towers. We have a really outdated code in terms of mobile facilities. Potentially accessory dwelling units. We get increasing number of inquiries about that. Signs are on the list. So those are probably the top 4 at this point in time.
Awesome.
Yep.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
Madam Chair, just one thing on that. On the November 6th, I will be out that day. So from Ms. Wagner, I just let a heads up that I will not be present for that meeting.
Thank you. And when do we vote again for new chair? Beginning of the year?
I think so.
Okay,
Beginning of
just
the year.
checking. Okay. Not that I don't love this
Or a
job.
continuation of the current chair.
You can't.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah. Okay.
They could do a great job.
Yeah, great.
We don't need a
Yeah,
replacement.
you have to, actually. If there are no other items, I would entertain a motion for adjournment.
I move to adjourn.
I second.
Please vote. Thank you. Have a good night.
Are you flying away on a Frontier?